Oh, hi there. Mobile games are ubiquitous in our modern culture. Nearly everyone has a device capable of playing thousands of games that they just carry around with them all day like it's nothing. You might even be watching this video on one right now. There has never been a time in history where gaming has been so accessible to the general public. And because of this, mobile gaming has become a titan of the industry, accounting for a massive chunk of the gaming market. And you would think these games would be easy to preserve. What, are 4.5 billion phones gonna implode and Angry Birds is gone forever? But as we've seen so many times on this channel, anything can become lost. Games can fade away, and by the time anyone realizes it, it might be too late. So I want to cover a few such games that are either nowhere to be found or have become inaccessible. And since this video is about mobile gaming, there is only one game that could sponsor this video: Raid Shadow Legends. Yes, the mobile game for iOS and Android, sweeping the world and bankrolling all of YouTube. I wanted to take a minute to talk about one of the best super tough challenges in Raid Shadow Legends, the Doom Tower. Quick anime lore: the tower is basically a massive prison where the Arbiter trapped a bunch of bad dudes she couldn't beat and left them there until she could figure out what to do with them. Fast forward a few thousand years later, and she still hasn't figured it out. And now that Seroth is leaking back into the world, the power she was using to keep everyone locked away is failing. So it's up to you to scale the mighty tower and finish the job that she couldn't. The Doom Tower starts off easy enough, but as you keep climbing, you're gonna need an army of champions to have a chance and a little bit of creative thinking. Like the Scarab King, he barely takes damage unless you reduce his max HP and attack without shield buffs. So get in there yourself and have fun experimenting on how to best take down the Doom Tower. This month, Raid has a lot going on. Special events every day, including an entirely new event for the summer solstice called the Path of Light. They also have new skins and new champions like Deliana Chase. You can get your hands on this brand new legendary champion just by logging in and playing Raid Shadow Legends for 7 days between now and July 20th. The best time to get started on Raid Shadow Legends is right now, so click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen, and new players will get $30 worth of bonuses, including a free epic champion, 200,000 silver, 1 energy refill, XP boost, and ancient shard. All this treasure will be waiting for you here, and the gifts keep coming. For all new players, once you're in the game, just enter promo code MyDeliana to get 50 XP brews to instantly get Deliana to max level 50, as well as a ton of silver. Just click the link in the description and I'll see you in the game.
Did somebody mention the door to darkness?
Kingdom Hearts VCast. Kingdom Hearts VCast is one of my favorite pieces of lost media. It was one of the first times I realized lost media could come from such a popular IP, and since my obsession with lost media has grown, the game has slowly begun to reassemble, where today we are tantalizingly close to uncovering the full game. Kingdom Hearts VCast is an unofficial entry in the beloved Kingdom Hearts franchise. The VCast game was made by Superscape and published by the Walt Disney Internet Group, making it the first title in the Kingdom Hearts series made without Square Enix. And I say, who needs them? Just look at this. Might not look like much now, but in 2004 on a cell phone, Sora was basically standing right next to you. You have to remember, these old flip phones would spontaneously combust if you played Tetris too long, so the fact that we can even vaguely make out Sora is nothing short of a miracle, even if that miracle comes at the cost of nightmare fuel Goofy. As the name suggests, the game was made exclusive to the Verizon Wireless VCast cell phone network, released in Japan in October 2004, and soon after in the US in February 2005. The setup for the game is told through text, explaining that Sora, Donald, Goofy, and Jiminy Cricket are traveling in the Gummy ship. They put the ship on autopilot and go to sleep, where a mysterious stowaway sneaks into Sora's dreams. Sora wakes up on Swordman Island, interchangeably called Swashbuckler Island, and can't find Donald or Goofy anywhere. After exploring the island, he takes a raft off the island to go find them. The story is non-canon, but Kingdom Hearts lore doesn't make sense anyways. They could say it's set between Kingdom Hearts 4 and 5, and the fandom would just have to figure it out. There's no indication of when the game might take place in the larger story, but fans theorize it takes place on the way to the Hollow Bastion for the first time in Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts VCast features franchise staples like the Keyblade, magic, money, and experience that's collected from beating the Heartless, and classic levels like Agrabah and Wonderland, while introducing new elements like horrendous tank controls, the original character Swordman Parrot, and the franchise's only appearance of the Caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. So that's where this poor guy's been, stuck in this awful game with no escape. The VCast network was closed in 2012, and Kingdom Hearts VCast was no longer available, leaving us with a piece of media at high risk of being lost forever, limited to those who had downloaded the game to a long outdated mobile phone. I mean, who keeps their old phones that long? I say with decades worth of old phones in a drawer next to my desk. But luckily, over time, Kingdom Hearts VCast past would slowly be preserved. In 2016, the game's first chapter and tutorial were posted to 4chan by user Wedge, followed by Chapter 3 in 2018, and recently, 2 members of the Kingdom Hearts Insider forums dumped the game's 4th and final chapter, with the YouTube channel Negative Space posting a playthrough on original hardware. Us plebes are left with no way of playing the game today. I mean, no one's out there making a VCast emulator, but diehards have found a few workarounds, like the YouTube channel KRZ1, who was able to get the game playing on the 2009 budget console Zeebo. Only the game's second chapter, Wonderland, remains lost. But given the game's track record of just popping up one day, I'd wager we won't be waiting too much longer until Kingdom Hearts VCast is deemed completely found. Gangnam Style Massacre. When you first look at Gangnam Style Massacre, it's fairly unassuming. You play as a schoolgirl shooting bases off Korean pop singer Psy's head. The title is basically edgy clickbait that capitalizes on the absolute chokehold that Gangnam Style had on us in 2012. It was the first video to get 1 billion views, and now it has like 4 billion. Absolutely insane for kind of how unremarkable this song is now, but it really helped Korean music get into the mainstream in the US. The mobile game was created and developed by Carolina Patron, published by Psycho Bear Studios, released for iOS on November 4th, 2012, making use of the touchscreen to aim and shoot. The game's description reads, "You're in Gangnam, a wealthy neighborhood in the South Korean city of Seoul. To be precise, you are out front of the most elite archery school in the city. Your job is simple. Take your bow and arrows and shoot them to hit as many of the vases off your friend's head. Aim too high and your shoot doesn't count. Aim too low, well, then you'll kill your friend and your game is over." The game really shows that not all lost media is good media. I found a few reviews of the game on YouTube and it's universally hated. Boring, repetitive gameplay, bland graphics, a generic soundtrack, and it is just covered in ads. But out of nowhere, on December 14th, 2012, Gangnam Style Massacre was updated to a completely new game under the name Gangnam Dance School. The new description reads, "You were once enrolled in an archery school, but now you teach at a dance school. Specifically, you teach the Gangnam Dance. But your dance was too alluring, and you were magically transported to a new fantasy land, one where the Kingdom Witch wants you as a slave. You must escape and get as far away as you can. Run or ride your Gangnam horse while avoiding obstacles. Jump them, slide under them, and even jump in between them. Get to 700 meters and win the game. If you pass that, keep running to set a new leaderboard record. How far will you get? A perfect game for the whole family." And these were not some surface level changes either. The game is completely different, and all mentions of this 1.0 version of Gangnam Style Massacre were scrubbed from the company's website, and even the game's version history has been erased, leaving the original title virtually wiped from existence. There's never been a reason given for the sudden, unannounced change, but when you look at the timing, it's pretty obvious why. The complete overhaul took place just hours after the tragedy at Sandy Hook Elementary. Given the circumstances, I wouldn't be surprised if Gangnam Style Massacre remains lost forever. Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII is my all-time favorite game. I haven't played the original in years, and I'm sure if I did, I could find plenty of flaws. I know there are games with more creative battle mechanics, more streamlined stories, and better writing, but no game will ever top the feeling of playing Final Fantasy VII as a kid. It's one of those games I've beaten countless times. I even completed a perfect game, collecting every single item, weapon, mastering every materia, besting every enemy, optional boss, getting every limit break, maxing out the characters. But for me, that wasn't good enough. I went through everything in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, Advent Children, the short stories, the Last Order anime. I borrowed a friend's PSP so I could play Crisis Core. I even tricked myself into loving Dirge of Cerberus, even though it's mid to be honest. But there's one game that has haunted me since childhood. One part of Final Fantasy VII that I, and most of the Western world, were never able to play. Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII. It drove me crazy that I couldn't play this game. I felt like I wasn't a real die-hard Final Fantasy VII fan if I didn't play Before Crisis. I was gatekeeping myself with a game that was literally impossible for me to play at the time. Before Crisis was a Japanese exclusive mobile game, only released on very specific phones in 2004, requiring an online connection and a subscription to Square Enix's Final Fantasy mobile service. Set 6 years before the main game, the story follows the Turks, a group of villains from Final Fantasy VII who are sent by the Shinra Corporation to investigate Avalanche, broken up into 27 chapters, special episodes, and 2 epilogues. Before Crisis overlaps with the PSP spin-off Crisis Core and features new characters, including a customizable player character, and returning characters like Aerith, Sephiroth, Cloud, Zack Fair, and Tifa. The gameplay is a real-time action RPG and uses the phone's camera to generate materia depending on the color of the picture you take. A dark green picture makes a biomateria, a blue picture makes cure, and so on. Before Crisis instantly became the best-selling mobile phone game at the time. Over 200,000 registered users and accessed over 1 million times in the first day alone. Pretty good for Final Fantasy's first mobile phone game. And you would think this unprecedented success would translate to a worldwide release, but this was before Steve Jobs had changed the game with the iPhone. Phones outside Asia were simply not good enough at the time to run this game, making it one of the very few Japanese-exclusive Final Fantasy titles in the 21st century. And by the time Western phones had caught up, Square Enix had moved on from Before Crisis. And on March 31st, 2018, Before Crisis was shut down. Unlike Kingdom Hearts VCast, even if you had the game downloaded, it was no longer playable. But not all has been lost. Because the game was so popular and sought after by Western audiences, a fan recreated Before Crisis in RPG Maker. This remake has so much love and care put into it, but it's still not perfect. They obviously couldn't recreate the unique materia mechanic. Most of the gameplay is turn-based now instead of real-time, and the graphics aren't exactly the same. But there is hope on the horizon. As part of the ongoing Final Fantasy VII Remake, in 2021, Square Enix announced Ever Crisis, a remake of the Final Fantasy VII spin-offs, including what will be the first official English release of Before Crisis. And while I am very concerned about the game's art style and its use of loot boxes, it brings up a few interesting questions concerning lost media and media preservation in general. When the remake of Before Crisis is officially released as part of Ever Crisis, is Before Crisis considered found? How different does the game have to be from the original to still be considered lost? And how accurate does the fan remake have to be for it to be considered found? I'd love to hear what you all think about this. Nancy Drew Mobile Mysteries. The first and only game in the Nancy Drew Mobile Mystery series, the case of Nancy Drew Mobile Mysteries Shadow Ranch is one that even the greatest amateur teenage detective can't crack. A mobile companion to 2004's Nancy Drew, The Secret of Shadow Ranch, and based on the 1931 book of the same name, Mobile Mysteries Shadow Ranch was developed by Her Interactive, published on February 23, 2011 for iOS, and a free demo of the first chapter was made available on April 11th of the same year. It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure novel with a handful of mini-games. Issues with the game first arose in 2014 when Shadow Ranch was having compatibility problems with newer versions of iOS. It got so bad that Her Interactive even commented on the issue in their blog. And by 2015, both the full game and the demo were pulled from the App Store when fans began to report that the game would no longer load past the main menu, an issue that some people were reporting as early as 2014. Former Her Interactive marketing coordinator, Kalini Herman, posted on her personal blog that Shadow Ranch was pulled from the App Store because it was no longer compatible with current iOS. Herman posted in 2017 that there is a possibility that the game could be re-released, but there is currently no plans to do so. And unlike Before Crisis, if someone has this app downloaded to their phone, they could put it online and the internet could just figure out how to make it work. But so far, none have surfaced. So someone watching could very well have this game lying around on an old phone, ready to post it online and become a lost media legend. Though it's currently impossible to play Nancy Drew Mobile Mysteries Shadow Ranch, there are trailers, promo videos, images, and there's a full playthrough of the game on the channel Arglefump. Ratchet and Clank Clone Home. Ratchet and Clank has become one of the PlayStation's flagship franchises. Since its release in 2002, it spawned a manga, spin-offs. It even got its own movie that was just awful. And in 2005, the series got its first mobile game, Ratchet and Clank Going Mobile. In the game, the duo are transported into a cell phone and have to fight their way out. The game is notable for being pretty bland. Only about 2 hours of content, and the second half of the game just has you revisiting older levels. And there is basically no sound outside of the main menu. The 2D side-scroller ends with a cliffhanger, setting up a mobile follow-up. Despite its flaws, a follow-up was announced in 2006 by IGN under the title Ratchet and Clank Clone Home. Clone Home would take place immediately after Going Mobile, expanding the previous game scope to 15 playable levels, and, in typical Ratchet and Clank fashion, would include a massive arsenal of weapons that Ratchet and Clank would use to fight cloned versions of themselves, kind of similar to the 2007 game Ratchet and Clank Size Matters. But for some reason, Clone Home was cancelled, and according to former employees, it was basically complete. My best guess is the first mobile game didn't sell well, and some of the ideas were reused in Size Matters. I really can't find anything to confirm this, but there seemed like there are just too many similarities, and the games were in development around the same time. Currently, no builds have been released of Clone Home, and we only have a few leaked screenshots of the game.
And the animation style is so dope. It's ridiculous, right?
Only one. Kanye West has a pretty absurd amount of lost media. Multiple albums and collabs that just never materialized, completed albums that were abandoned, unreleased music videos, unaired TV pilots. But the wildest one of them all has to be his lost video game, Only One. Only One shares its title with Ye's 2014 collab with Paul McCartney. The song is sung through the perspective of Kanye's late mother, Donda West, and Kanye has said in interviews that he believes his mother was singing through him in the studio on this song. Donda has had a massive influence on Kanye's life and discography, and he planned to extend this influence into mobile gaming. Kanye casually announced the game in 2015 in an interview with The Breakfast Club. We would get our first trailer on February 11th, 2016, during his Yeezy Season 3 fashion show in New York. We don't really get an idea of the gameplay through the trailer, but it's believed that Only One was meant to be an endless runner for the iOS and possibly Android. According to Kanye, the idea is, it's my mother going through the gates of heaven, and you have to bring her to the highest gates of heaven by holding her to the light. The game was being developed by Encyclopedia Pictura, an LA-based animation studio who had never made a video game before, but Kanye did try to get another, much more experienced studio involved. Ye made a surprise visit to 2015's E3 gaming convention, but not to demo any upcoming games or hear about the future of the industry. He was on a mission. He sought out Nintendo of America's then president, Reggie Fils-Aimé, and after a pleasant chat, scheduled a private meeting with Reggie at Ye's Yeezy studio in Calabasas. Kanye wanted Reggie's reaction to a video game he was working on, ultimately asking Nintendo to be involved. It's never been confirmed what this game was, but it's almost certainly Only One. There's never been any indication that Kanye was working on any other game during this time. Reggie politely declined, saying, "Kanye, you don't want to work with us because we're tough, we're hard. All we do is push for the very best content. We would not be the type of partner you'd want to work with." And if you know anything about Kanye West, this is basically the worst thing you could say to him. Ye replied, "Reggie, you're exactly the type of partner I want, because of that reason." Reggie had to more firmly decline, and has since said there's no hard feelings, but unsurprisingly, Kanye took it pretty personally. With Nintendo out of the picture, development continued with Encyclopedia Pictura, and there were at least 3 levels being worked on that were comparable to Super Mario Run or Cannabalt. We don't know how close the game was to completion, but Only One was demoed privately at E3 in June 2016. It's even said that this private demo was live streamed, but I can't find footage anywhere. It's reported that by 2016, development on the game had stalled, and employees were told that funding had fell through, but the company denied this, and a representative of Kanye's would echo this sentiment. Development of the game continues. Despite continued comments that the game is still in the works, most of the dev team have moved on to other projects. Encyclopedia Pictura's website now reads, "From 2015 to 2017, we developed a video game with Kanye West called Only One. You play as Kanye's mom, Donda, flying through the afterlife. We completed a version that was never released as Kanye wanted to expand the scope. We built a prototype of this bigger game, but following the events of November 2016, we parted ways with the project." This is referring to Kanye's erratic behavior and eventual hospitalization in 2016. These prototypes and demos of Kanye West's Only One have yet to surface. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, you might like my other video on the mysterious video game, Yeah, Beavis 1. And shout out to my Patreon supporters for voting on this video. They had previously voted for me to do superhero lost media, but in that poll, lost mobile games was such a close second I had to do both. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.